Committee to order. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton,
Here.
Hudson,
Here.
Gregory, Henderson,
Here.
Nirenberg, Schroer,
Here.
Weber.
All right, quorum being established. Due to Appropriations Committee meeting and going to markup, we're going to go ahead and move into executive session first and get that over with. So I make a motion that we move into executive session. We have a second. We are in executive session. I make a motion that we bring up House Committee substitute for House Bill 2404 and 2172. I have a second. I move that we adopt the Senate Committee substitute. It has been distributed. This was the acquisition of public lands that we heard last week. The sub actually just trying to work out a compromise, remove some of the provisions to hopefully alleviate some of the opposition. I know it's a working bill in progress, and I'm sure will have to be flushed out on the floor, but this is at least trying to come part of the way is what the sub does include. So any discussion? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, we've adopted the substitute. I move that Senate Committee substitute for House Committee substitute for House Bill 2404 and 2172 do pass.
Second.
I have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton,
Aye.
Hudson,
Aye.
Gregory, Henderson,
Aye.
Nirenberg, Schroer, Weber.
All right. By your vote of 4-0, the motion passes. All right. I move that we take up House Committee substitute for House Bill 1757.
Second.
All right. Have a second. I move that House Committee substitute for House Bill 1757 do pass. Second. Any discussion? Okay. Seeing none, Mr. Secretary, please call the roll.
Senators Bratton,
Aye.
Hudson,
Aye.
Gregory, Henderson,
Aye.
Nirenberg, Schroer, Weber.
All right. By your vote of 4-0, the motion passes. I make a motion that we move out of executive session. Can I have a second? We are out of executive session. Now we're going to go into into hearing House bills. We're going to go ahead and hear House Committee substitute for House Bill 2748, Representative Davidson. I know you had other meetings, so we wanted to go a little bit out of order. But you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for accommodating me. Thank you to members of the committee for hearing this bill. House Bill 2748, the spirit of the legislation is that we'd like to see physical activity in our schools. It has evolved since when it was filed, and I anticipate it evolving considerably more here in this committee. And I'd like to speak to some of the differences that I anticipate or I would recommend in a substitute now after many conversations with senators, representatives alike. Originally, it was 60 minutes, K through 12, of physical activity every day, What I would suggest now, and a recommendation I had made on the floor, was to go through K through 8, and what I'd even recommend now is elementary. And the 60 minutes in elementary currently are 150 minutes, or currently what's in elementary, I should say, is a 150-minute average of physical activity plus a 20-minute recess period. And so if you divide that daily, you're looking at 50 minutes. And so what I would recommend is actually conforming even to those 50 minutes so that we don't have to have a question about, well, where does this time come from or where does that time come from? Instead, conforming to the time that's already allocated within an elementary school period, and then conforming within that period a clearer vision of what kind of physical activity we would like to see within those schools. The reason for this bill truly is learning outcomes. There's just an immense amount of data that if a young person's body is moving in the days that it's learning, days that their mind is learning, then we see better learning outcomes. Whether it's case studies of school districts that we can look at around the country, or whether it's studies on dyslexia or any other sort of learning, developmentally learning disability, it's something that we can see. We can also see behavioral outcomes improve and mental health outcomes improve, and that's not even to speak of physical health outcomes as well. Unfortunately, the experts that I've had in the past, one is on jury duty today, and the other is at a conference, I believe in Texas, if I'm not mistaken. And they've been really helpful in explaining a lot of the nuances and details. I'm happy to continue those discussions with any of members of the committee, but with that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much for bringing the bill. I think this is something that's extremely important, especially for boys. Boys are more active. They have to have movement, and we've structured our education system to where they have to sit in desks and be quiet and be good little boys when we are created to be more active. I know me as a student, man, I had to get the energy out. And I brought up to you, I remember when I was first elected, I was talking to somebody at the Catholic school across the street, and they were explaining how they used to do things right after lunch at their school. Every single day after lunch, they would require the entire school to come to this Capitol building, run and make a race all the way to the very top of the Capitol building, and then race all the way back to get the jitters out. And physical activity is a requirement for kids to be able to kind of settle down. And I think we move away from that, and then we have these poorer outcomes. So I just wanted to reiterate that I think this is important that we have this.
Well, yeah, and what you're saying, right, we've moved away from it is absolutely true. I think we've moved away from it curricularly, but we've also moved away from it in our personal lifestyles, in our cultural lifestyle, right? It used to be very regular for a kid of any age and any sort of athletic inclination, right? Maybe you didn't have sports, but they were outside running around until the sun went down or they were called in for dinner. And even though I'm younger, was running around a lot more than I think kids today are. And we see that with the promulgation of cell phones and social media and all these things. A lot of negative influences there. And so this is an effort to try and reverse some of that and to get back to that healthy living that actually produces the learning outcomes that we'd like to see.
Thank you. Any questions? Proceed, Senator.
No, I agree with the premise. I agree with everything that the chairman said, that the kids need to be moving. They're not doing it. My only concern with it is this, is we keep saying we want this with schools and we want this training in the schools and we want this in schools, is the time factor. I think to ever implement this would be a bigger package to be able to do that from time, building perspective, because now we've built schools through time, and people say, we don't need all this gym space because it's a waste. We should be there to educate the kids. I've heard that one before. Probably some of them out there who worked on education have heard that before. And then all of a sudden we don't have the rooms that we need. So what I'm saying is I agree with you in premise. These kids are better off when they're moving. My grandson used to complain all the time, I don't get PE very much, and things like that. But I think it's also got to be part of a bigger conversation to how we fit it in with all the other things we're asking them to do is all I'm trying to say.
Senator, I think you're exactly right. And I think you'd have a lot of apprehension about the bill that sits in front of you. If I could talk with you later, I think what I would suggest in a committee substitute here would be something that conforms maybe more to what you could be supportive of. And the reason why is because that does take more of a holistic vision to really rewrite from the ground up. What I'm looking to do is take the already established time requirements that exist within our elementary schools today, which is 150 minutes average per week, and say we're going to reshuffle that time and make sure that it's 30 minutes a day instead of 150 minutes a week. And then within that 30 minutes, we're going to have a little bit more direction in a way that's going to really benefit these young bodies.
And I don't disagree with that. What I'm saying is also we have a bill that we're going to hold kids back and if they're not reading on grade level and stuff. And so I know what's going to happen. Teachers are saying, we've got to focus there too. What I'm saying is we got to be careful how many focuses we keep trying to give them without packaging it together to make sure it all works instead of just saying, here, go forth and fix this.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think there's a great study on it. It was a student with dyslexia, And they found that as they got hung up on words, if they had done physical activity, they were able to read 20% more. And so I do want to keep this learning outcomes focused, even though there are tremendous physical benefits and other benefits that can be discussed.
Thank you. Any further questions? See none. Anyone to testify in support of the bill, please come forward.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to leave here shortly because of a prior engagement, but thank you so much for this hearing, and happy to take any questions offline from anyone here up in the committee, but also behind us in the public hearing.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jorgen Schlammer, I'm here on behalf of a guy named Chuck Stetson. He reached out to us this fall and said that he was very interested in initially reducing childhood obesity. And I said, all right, I'm interested. This is kind of my area of interest. And what he brought forward was actually a study that started as reducing childhood obesity, but then became much more valuable than just reducing obesity. It's actually outlined greatly in a book called Spark that I bought and began to read. And it is a project out of Naperville, Illinois, which is a suburb of Chicago. And what they found was, and it was a clinician, it was a physician that did this, and what they found is not only did the obesity rates go down, as they had a very regimented exercise program, not just PE, but the program that he put together that these kids had to perform each day in the morning in order for certain things to happen in their body. One was dopamine actually being released in their brain. And it had an effect on their education. And not only did it help with boys, one of the things that it also showed that it had somewhat of a mood stabilizer of girls. Girls have higher anxiety for some reason than boys. What they then decided to do is, because they saw the learning going up, the scores going up in the school because of them being settled, the clinical nature of the exercise program, is they began placing the exercise program immediately before the classes that the kids struggled with the most. And they wanted to see what kind of outcomes happened when they did that. That school district went from the 52nd percentile in the nation, 52nd percentile in the state, to the 99th percentile in the world in 2 years, simply because they rearranged the day and they began to think about, instead of constantly trying to get our teachers ready to teach and our school administrators better and our facilities better, talking about the gyms and so forth, is what can we do to get our kids ready to learn and absorb the information better? And this clinical study seemed to prove it. It had great outcome data. And all the kids in the schools really enjoyed taking that on as kind of accomplishment as a whole, instead of them each individually competing against one another. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I think it's a great bill. It probably does have a little bit more refinement to it. And sorry it took too long.
No, thank you very much for your testimony. Any questions? See none.
Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else to testify in support? Can I see a show of hands who's here to testify for or against the bill? Okay. All right. Information. All right. Informational purposes only.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. We've forgotten many things. This country used to do a lot better 100 years ago in terms of making sure that all of our kids in school had a lot of physical activity and really learned how to move and use their bodies. I think we're supportive of the effort to move in the direction of having more physical activity, because we strongly believe it encourages a healthy lifestyle, it encourages better learning. Senator Henderson commented to, there's going to be a tendency to feel pushback. And why is that? This is probably not news to this committee. We believe that there has been a long-standing trend of state and federal requirements creating this sense that we have no time available because of all the things that are required, even in elementary grades. And we've seen an evolution of the standardized testing that came along about 30 years ago. Then we had Common Core embedding standards that related to screens and so on. And we're moving in the direction of having devices in front of every kid. And then COVID happened, and suddenly we had that much more pressure to have more focus on devices. And at the same time in society, we've seen that emerging trend that kids have access and are using devices the rest of the day also. And so what we see in this legislation is basically the CDC standards for activity of kids 6 to 17, or roughly 2/3 of it. So that getting there, it makes sense for us to get there. And we know from a lot of research the impact, the positive impact that activity has on preparing the brain to really learn. We just believe that this needs to be a part of a broader effort to bring back the opportunity for elementary education to really be designed well to work with children. They are not young adults. And we need to treat them as children and figure out how the school day can be designed for an elementary age kid that supports their development, that supports their functioning and supports their learning. And we need a serious course correction. This bill, in the long run, could be a part of that. We just wanted to point out there's reasons why there's reluctance to take on yet another thing. We need to really have that conversation about redesigning, making those course corrections where we've gone way too far on those other trends that have pulled us away from physical activity. Happy to answer any questions.
No, and I think you're exactly right. I think we have to, I think we do pile on so many requirements within the education system, but then we forget exactly who we're teaching and that we're, going against human nature of these kids. So I think this is...
And done with often the best of intentions.
Yep,
often
that's
with
right.
the best of intentions.
Absolutely. Any questions? See none.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I think we had somebody, we're going to go back to, or is there anyone else for informational? Okay. I think, Arnie, you were against the, okay. You're for? Information. Okay, well, if you want to come finish your informational as well. Okay, so we'll finish the informational and then we'll go back to I didn't realize that Arnie was waiting, so.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Kaina Iman, on behalf of Missouri Alliance for Arts Education. I don't want to keep Arnie waiting, so I'll be brief. Just wanted to point out that, we have students, the way the bill's written now, have problems with it because of so many of the electives that kids need to take to get scholarships. So like marching band, first thing in the morning, feel that like that gets the, juices running in some of those students, and so that's just as important as PE in some cases. So I think pairing it back to just grade school, we have less heartburn on it versus mandating a PE class every day in high school when they're trying to get like choir, band, visual arts, some of these things knocked out for scholarships.
No, I think there's definitely room for making adjustments to this. And
right.
My daughters were in marching band, and I know. I used to
vigorous.
be when I played football. I was like, marching band. Until my daughters were in, I'm like, holy cow, those guys
you
really
guys get some steps in.
Yeah,
right.
So they definitely do. So thank you.
Okay.
Any questions? See none. Anyone else testify informational?
Bill Gamble, registered lobbyist, appearing on behalf of the Missouri Career and Technical Education Association, career and technical education in our schools. Otto's right, you're right. We're heaping too many requirements, and we can't get kids who want and need to be in our career and technical programs because they have to meet these graduation requirements. An example given to me by one of my members. A student, they own a farm. He wants to come back and run the farm, wants to go to the university, get a degree, but because of a personal finance course, he can't take the business agriculture course, and so that's what we're running into. All these requirements are not allowing us to get students into these programs in which they can come out and graduate and be wage earners with good jobs and good careers. So a whole look at this. We appreciate the sponsors' indication. I hope you agree that we take out high school. That's where our problem is, and that's where we're having a significant problem. You know, we got two problems. We don't have enough spaces. We can only handle about 40% of our kids, and then we've got a significant number of kids, because of these course requirements, can't get into these programs and learn a trade and a vocation.
Yeah, thank you very much. Proceed.
You're exactly correct, because I've had kids before that had to drop out of band because it was going to cost them a scholarship. They had to take a more advanced courses because they knew the criteria for the scholarship, so they get caught in that all the time.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. Anyone else for informational purposes?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Mike Harris on behalf of the Missouri State Teachers Association, go on record for informational purposes. We share a lot of the same concerns as other witnesses have. Sounds like a lot of those are being addressed. Our main thing with it is that it hasn't had really a lot of input from educators and parents how it would be rolled out in the schools. Maybe something like a pilot program with a small sample of districts to kind of get it right for a few years would be a good approach to go with. Just to see how the mechanism would work. We don't disagree that more physical activity for kids is a good thing. We know that kids learn better when they're physically fit and active, and would like to see something that could go forward where we could all get on the same page and agree that this is a good thing for schools. Appreciate it. Happy to answer any questions.
No, thank you. Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anyone else for informational purposes? Okay, seeing none, we're going to balance back to against. I apologize, I should have had them. I didn't realize there were people out in the hallway.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Arne C. A.C. Dinoff, State Public Advocate. First of all, I want to check with staff. I filled out my online form on the Senate portal, so I'm opposed to it. I was opposed to it in the House Education Committee, where this was presented back a few months ago. I believe in physical education. I think it's an important aspect of educational and good activities, good socialization, and teach a whole bunch of great assets to students that are lifelong lessons. However, all the school districts in eastern Missouri that I know of, there's none that I do not know, that don't already offer physical education in some form of an elective at the high school level, or if it's mandatory at the elementary and middle school levels. 30 minutes of forced physical education, it's been pared down. This bill's been pared down over in the House from K through 12 to elementary only, it's my understanding, as of today. And it comes down to local choice, and I believe in local elected school officials, local school board members who were charged and elected by district citizens to make these important choices of curriculum when presented by staff. Local curriculum choice and scheduling a student's time is of much value. Federal and state regulators, DESE and other federal agencies keep mounting courses, mandatory courses after courses after courses on school districts. As you all know, we have 518 school districts in Missouri, and in my opinion, by forcing 30 minutes of physical education at the elementary level is taking away school administrators who are in charge of developing curriculum and local school boards elected by district citizens. Now, there's two other bills that are going through the House that I believe that have passed and are sitting over here in the Senate, and they deal with other courses offered, which I think are very important for life skills. One of the bills is social media ethics and responsibility, and the other is driver's education, which I think is very important at the high school level. But again, it comes down to local control and for school boards and curriculum experts to decide on their own merits what's important for their school districts. For those reasons, I cannot support forced physical education, and so therefore I oppose HCS HB2748. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Now, thank you very much. All right. Anyone else, since we're in opposition? Okay, see none. That will conclude the hearing on House Bill 2748. We're going to go ahead and move to Representative Brown's 2896. I do apologize, this is not normal, but we have, with appropriations markup, virtually everybody on this committee is on appropriations as well, so I'll be manning the fort for the remainder. Proceed.
Chairman Bratton, thank you for time and opportunity to present House Bill 2896. For the record, I'm Chris Brown, Missouri House Representatives, District 16 from the Northland of Kansas City. House Bill 2896 would lessen the residency requirements for individuals eligible to be appointed to our governing boards for our universities across the state. Currently, the residency requirements make it difficult to find individuals willing to serve on these boards. Consequently, many appointees end up serving well beyond their appointed terms simply because a suitable replacement cannot be found. House Bill 2896 would simplify the residency requirement to half of the board residing within the county of the university and half outside of that county. This change will benefit the governor's office with an expanded pool of candidates, but also universities by having folks on their boards that truly want to be there. The governor's office asked me to file this bill, and as chairman of higher education and workforce on the House side, I have not heard from any of our universities concerned about these changes, and there was no opposition in committee. With that, Mr. Chairman, I'll take questions.
Yeah, thank you very much. Anyone for the bill and in support? Okay, anyone? Oh, all right. Proceed when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Well, I guess there's lack of a committee. My name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate. I am in favor of this House bill. I was in favor of it a few months ago when it was presented in the House committee. This is a basically no-brainer. As the bill sponsor stated, it simplifies the requirement of the boards for certain universities and colleges that are state-run for more availability of a candidate poll, I should say. And especially with Harris State College, I think that there's a couple areas where they're having a hard time filling these vacancies, and these are just common sense policies, promulgated rules and regulations that would make it easier for the governor to find suitable candidates to serve on these board of curators or college trustee positions. For those reasons, I highly support the bill.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for your testimony. Anyone else in support? Okay, see none. Against? Okay, see none. Anyone for informational purposes? Okay, see none. All right, that will conclude the hearing. We'll move to House Committee Substitute for House Bill 2872. Representative, proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kathy Jo Loy, and I represent the 163rd, which is Carthage and East Joplin, and I thank you for this opportunity. We know that reading is the foundation for every subject that we teach, and this legislation builds on what you guys accomplished in 2022 with Senate Bill 681. Literacy is also the reason I started coming up to the Capitol and testified in this very room for Senator Emery in 2017. We know that the science of reading is an evidence-based reading. The first through third graders learn to read so that after the fourth grade, they read to learn. But the reality is we still have work to do. The national report card says that roughly 40% of fourth grade students do not read at grade level and are below proficient. The science of reading provides a proven framework, and when implemented well, the vast majority of our children can learn to read. This bill focuses on applying that knowledge in a consistent way across the state. It strengthens teacher preparation so that educators are trained in those core components. It improves screening, allowing schools to identify struggling readers sooner and respond with targeted intervention. And it reinforces supports for families, creating a true partnership that strong readers need parents and teachers in that to communicate strong reading goals. I also want to address the retention that's getting a lot of attention. Retention is not the goal. Literacy is the goal. This bill is about making retention unnecessary because we are ensuring that readers learn to read early. But we also have to be honest about the alternative. It's far more punitive to keep passing a child on when they cannot read, and that way we graduate 17-year-olds who can't read instead of 18-year-olds who can. When used early and paired with strong intervention, retention helps students catch up. So again, retention is not the strategy, literacy is. Retention is just the tourniquet to stop the bleed of children who are not reading. This bill reflects strong input from educators and is grounded in what works. It passed in the House 131 to 10. It's a simple goal, helping Missouri children become confident readers so that education becomes full of possibilities. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
No, thank you for the bill. All right. Anyone to testify in support? Can I see a show of hands who are testifying for or against the bill? Okay. All right. All right. Anyone to testify in support, if you could come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form if you're here for or against or informational. Proceed when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, Matt Greasy representing Activate Missouri today, and we want to go on record in support of this legislation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else testify in support? Okay, going once, twice. Against, please come forward. Please remember to fill out a witness form.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Troy Lentz. I serve as superintendent of the Mexico Public School District. Literacy instruction is important to me. I believe we should always seek better outcomes for students. I believe that the intent of this bill is positive. I think we should always look to improve. Senate Bill 1442 contains some provisions that are beneficial. I think guidance for educator preparation programs will help students. I think increased parental involvement will help students. However, mandated student retention policies based on performance on a standardized test given to third graders will not benefit students. I encourage legislators to consider eliminating the language from the bill. Little evidence suggests that mandated retention policies help students in the long term. Mississippi implemented a mandatory retention policy for elementary students. They did see gains on fourth grade NAEP scores. If you hold back students that aren't as strong at reading, your fourth grade scores will probably go up. Their eighth grade scores have not improved, so in the long term, we're not seeing a real benefit from it. Those are our NAEP scores. I would say if NAEP is the benchmark, I believe that we should study the practices used by DOEA, formerly DODEA, and Massachusetts. Those are the nation's leaders on NAEP scores. If DOEA, formerly DODEA, Massachusetts were countries, they would be the highest performing countries in the world on PISA. Neither of those systems use mandated retention policies. Both invest heavily in early childhood education. In 2002, the legislature adopted comprehensive literacy reform package. The improvements made possible by this legislation are bearing fruit. Last year, 2025, we had the highest percentage of students scoring advanced on third grade MAP ELA of the last 4 years. Senate Bill 1442 has the potential to interrupt the progress that is being made currently. As it stands, retention is an intervention that is already available to support struggling readers, but that decision is made by parents and students. I do not think the state should infringe on the rights of parents by mandating retention based on child's performance on standardized tests. Federal law requires standardized testing for students in grades 3 through 8. I would also add that most of these standardized tests always create a bell curve. We will almost always have 40% of our kids below grade level. It's just a mathematical function of how the tests are created. expanding standardized testing and this bill has, we start testing the kids in first grade and second grade. If they haven't scored by third grade, they don't advance. I believe expanding standardized testing to first graders should be carefully considered. I encourage you to consider eliminating the language regarding mandatory retention of the bill. I do thank you for the opportunity.
So, I struggle with, the thought of continuing to pass kids on that absolutely have to be able to master and at least get a grasp in the concept of literacy. As a personal experience with my daughter, who we found out was dyslexic, if we would have passed her on, it would have been a complete total train wreck throughout the rest of her education. And I see where kids, the delay and the capability of detection of I agree with you with early childhood and trying to get them at the front end. But it could be a multifaceted approach, but if they're still not testing and capable to grasp in literacy, passing them on is not a help, a benefit, or anything. It only will lead to, in my opinion, to more disastrous results as you continue to hurl, like my daughter being dyslexic, you continue to hurl onto them more advanced everything onto them when they're already struggling at the past grade level. It's a recipe for disaster. So I guess I know it may be difficult, and we held my daughter back, and yeah, it sucked at that time, and she hated it, and her friends are moving on, but it's been the best thing we've ever done for my daughter, and I think it would be a huge benefit for kids. It would suck in the immediate, but man, what they could learn and how it will help them in their life from then on, I think is a huge benefit. So.
Yeah. May I respond?
Yeah, that's what. Yeah.
And I appreciate you bringing up dyslexia. I appreciate that in this bill there's a carve out for dyslexia, and my son is dyslexic. It's a real challenge. So in the bill there's a carve out. If a student has a diagnosis for dyslexia, they're allowed to proceed. I think what's really challenging is unless you're a person like you or I, it's really difficult to get that dyslexia diagnosis early on. If you don't have means, because it takes some time and energy and effort to go get a dyslexia diagnosis. So a lot of our kids are dyslexic and they're not diagnosed. I do appreciate the work that the state legislature has done to elevate the conversations around dyslexia and to mandate professional development around it. And in my experience with my son, and everybody's experience is different, he's gone through, reading is a struggle for him. He always needs assistance in reading. But there's a lot of things that he's also good at. He's a good mathematician. He was a really good clarinet player until he decided that it's not cool to play the clarinet, it's cool to be a football player. So there's things that kids are good at, and they're not able to advance forward on that. I do believe that our schools provide intensive reading support to kids who are behind. I do think retention is something that people should consider, and I think it happens more than we acknowledge. But I think those conversations are best left to teachers and parents.
Well, because I look at just kids going through a course. If you fail a course, do we require them to have to redo the course, or do we just continue to pass them on to the next?
I'll speak for some of the secondary people in here. There's quite a bit of credit recovery going on in Missouri high schools. I mean, yeah.
Well, I know, and our colleges are now doing remedial high school education instead of being a college. That's what I'm saying. I mean, so we're seeing the fruits of the continual passing on and passing the problem on.
Yeah, and my point was that there are definitely still times in education where we don't pass kids on, where kids have to repeat a course. Yeah, but at a time in our history, it's not until fairly recent where, again, colleges are having to literally have to do remedial high school education. I mean, it was very rare. Now it's the norm, and then that's what. So we have to fix. No, I think this literacy aspect, and I think like you brought up dyslexia in the diagnosis. Well, we implemented a policy of whole learning.
of which we know with whole learning, dyslexics are fantastic being able to skirt the system before they're able to have that detection. Science of reading helps for
Right.
a better, earlier detection. And if we're able to, envelop the, like Orton Gillingham or these sorts of policies within right from the onset of literacy training, man, we'll be steps ahead. It's
Yeah.
just being able to, I don't want to get into a filibuster, but
Yeah, I understand.
so-
And I would say that our third graders last year proved that the letters training that's been pushed out to districts, I mean, they're really the first group that maybe had a chance to have a teacher all the way through that had letters training.
Right.
So I think there's been really good work, and it's because of legislative action. And I mean, not to be too country, but I think we could let that paint dry a little bit and see where we end up.
See where it's, okay. Yeah.
I
Hey,
appreciate your time. I really appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your testimony. All right, anyone else testify against?
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Committee, Otto Fajan on behalf of Missouri NEA. It somewhat pains me to speak in opposition to a bill on literacy. I do want to point out a couple things. One of them is that one of the things that Mississippi did not do after passing their legislation in 2013 is to turn around and make significant changes in 2017. And so I think I would echo the prior witness. We did pass in 2022, and really it's only been 3 years that it's been in place. A pretty carefully considered and intentional program that's very much in line with some of the work that Mississippi has done. That said, I think I'll just go ahead and point out what we recommend, because we think, we've seen, I've spoken to the concerns that we have in terms of how we run elementary schools earlier today even. We've also seen, it would be naive of us not to be aware of trends we've seen even in the last few years. So yes, we passed that bill in 2022, but that was during the COVID episode, so to speak, and we've seen the COVID episode further push something that really profoundly affects literacy, and that is the pervasive use of one-to-one screens throughout elementary schools. And so it's probably naive of us to not realize maybe we do need to do some things. One of the things that we could heartily support that's in this bill is all the provisions that relate to oversight of the educator prep programs, the reporting and oversight from the department, and the language relating to 3Qing. But we would encourage, we don't really see as much prospect for us to really improve beyond what we're already implementing in the program we already have from 4 years ago if we don't address some of these other issues. For example, the screen time issue, and the Senate now has a bill, House Bill 2230, that really focuses on that. We see that as essential to improving the progress that we're able to make through Senate Bill 681 on literacy. We would recommend some kind of peripheral things that are reforms that would, maybe for bonus points, would improve the workings of that. One would be to require that tests be, for example, we're talking about the reading screening tests. We should not force kids to do that on a device. We should say, and perhaps we should consider legislation that says we'll do that with paper and pencil. We would also suggest that also be extended, and this is kind of a bonus score, extend that broadly through elementary in terms of the MAP test as well. I would also make a recommendation specifically as it relates to reading success plans. The current law says that those are done for students with a substantial deficiency. For the students who are kind of right above that, this bill essentially says you have to do a reading success plan. That's a lot of paperwork for students that we're basically kind of making sure they don't fall into a lower category. We would suggest that could be streamlined to say we're going to have notice to parents, we're going to provide appropriate interventions and have enhanced progress monitoring, but not actually require them to fall under the reading success plan. And finally, our organization, having spoken in favor of parental sign-off on substantial changes for a kid with special needs, a change of placement, it's difficult for us to see the law changed to really take away parental agency in these decisions about retention, especially since as it stands, it's basically going to rest on a single event score. and if the student maybe had a bad day on the last testing event in the end of the third grade school year, that puts them just below the line versus just above the line. At a minimum, there should be some intermediate levels of response. For example, the old law prior to Senate Bill 681 actually required, if the student had a substantial deficiency, that they had to do summer school focused on reading interventions and remediations. So at a minimum, there ought to be some options to avoid retention if the student is able to really kind of buckle down and get across the line in some other intermediate program. Those are our suggestions, and we're happy to work with you as the committee to improve this legislation.
Yeah.
Happy to answer questions.
No, thank you. I think that makes sense, and I think there's definitely...
And that's a lot of specifics. Yeah. I'm happy to provide that in more detailed form to the committee.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Otto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else in opposition, please come forward.
Hello. Gentlemen, Craig Carson from Ozark Schools, and I serve on the State Literacy Council, and I'm the Vice President of Southwest Curriculum Directors Association. Thanks for letting us speak to this. The first reason that I agree with letting the paint dry, really we've only had 2 full years of training to get all of our teachers through letters, and we've had over 10,000 teachers now go through that process. The legislation caused a sea change for how we teach reading around the state, and as teachers develop their sea legs, they in Ozark. Last year at this time, between the beginning of the year and the middle of the year, reading success plan numbers went up. This year, between the beginning of the year and now, the number of reading success plans have gone down. So what we are doing and how we're implementing the past legislation is actually working, and we're seeing a trend in all the right directions in regard to our RSPs and for those interventions to work. We just need time for that process to happen. Secondly, mandatory retention with a narrow set of reasons for students not to be retained is really not good for students, in my opinion. I have sat side by side with parents, just like yourself, and have walked through why we should retain a kid and why we shouldn't, and what's the best wisdom choice for those parents. God gave those kids to them. They didn't give them to me, and I think that's really a parent's choice, and sometimes it's the best choice. Sometimes the best choice to accelerate a kid. So we have kids on either side that we have to do what's best for the kid, and I never think mandatory is a good reason for that. And especially if you're looking at one test score, we look at a kid holistically and help a parent decide, is this a good idea or not? And sometimes it's the best idea. And when that happens, then I absolutely support it. I don't think the mandatory trigger is good. On the MAP assessment, we see an increase. So right now, last year's third graders, we had 15% of students below basic. When they took it as fourth graders, we only had 5% of our kids below basic. So just a year of growth with the interventions we put in, because the students were below basic, we saw 10% leave that below basic category. Well, if we have 5% of our students who are below basic, that's less than the number of percentage of students that are even on IEPs. So you can see that the interventions and the teaching we're doing around science of reading and the pieces we're putting in place are working. I think we have to give that time to work throughout the state. You've already heard about the retention in states like Florida and others. It doesn't sustain through 8th grade on the NAEP. And the third reason I would suggest for not approving this bill is the intensive interventions that are listed. If I had one of my children struggled, and if I told them as a struggler that I'm sorry you don't read well, we're going to have you spend the majority of your day, your next time through third grade, the majority of that day is going to be in reading, then I would just be giving him a year of Hades. That would be horrible, that he would spend with limited number of classmates in reading the majority of the day. I'm going to get some horrible behaviors out of him and demotivation. I just don't think those are excellent pedagogical strategies for my own kid. I wouldn't want that for him, and I wouldn't want that for other kids around the state. So I totally appreciate you listening to us, and would urge you to not be.
No, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Anyone else testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Committee Member. My name is Brandy Turner. I'm the superintendent at Taneyville R2 School District in Southwest Missouri, and I'm here to respectfully share my concerns regarding House Bill 2872 and its impact on students and their families. In 2022, Missouri lawmakers made a special investment in early literacy through the passage of Senate Bill 681. Under this bill, school districts are required to create a literacy plan, screen all students in early grades to identify reading deficiencies, develop and implement reading success plans for struggling readers, provide targeted evidence-based interventions, monitor student progress regularly, communicate consistently with families, and ensure teacher training is aligned in the science of reading. These are not optional practices. These are mandated statewide. Districts across Missouri, including mine, are actively implementing these requirements with fidelity, and we are committed to improving literacy outcomes for all students. When we are seeing progress, however, meaningful systematic change requires time, consistency, and sustained support. We're in a marathon with the training, and we're not in a sprint to see the outcomes. Many of our teachers are currently participating in LETRS training, which provides deep research-based instruction in the science of reading. This type of professional development is critical in expanding access to it, particularly through preparation programs which strengthen literacy outcomes across the state. Next, I would like to speak about my concerns with mandatory retention. While the goal of improving literacy is one we all share, retention is not supported by research as an effective long-term solution. Decades of educational research consistently show that retention increases the likelihood of students dropping out of high school, negatively impacts long-term academic achievement, contributes to decreased student engagement and motivation, and has lasting social and emotional consequences. Retention does not address the root cause of reading difficulties. It simply delays progression without guaranteeing improved outcomes. While the intent is to support struggling readers, the practice itself does not remedy the underlying challenges students face. Additionally, the limited good cause exemptions do not fully consider the whole child. For example, a student who struggles with reading may be referred for an evaluation but not qualify for an individualized education plan due to cognitive limitations. In these cases, retention does not serve the student's best interests as it cannot change or improve a student's intellectual capacity. Simply repeating a grade does not provide a different outcome. Another important consideration is the role of parents. Under current law, Senate Bill 681 supports collaborative decision-making between schools and families, ensuring that parents remain active partners in their child's education. House Bill 2872 shifts that balance by limiting flexibility and placing final decisions within a rigid framework. Parents know their children best, and their voice should remain central in decisions that directly impact their child's educational path. For example, consider the impact on a family when a child is retained and placed in the same grade level as a younger sibling. The emotional and social consequences of such a decision can be significant, not just for the student, but for the entire family. Under House Bill 2872, parents may no longer have meaningful input in that decision, despite the deeply personal nature of its impact. We are on the right path. Missouri is on the right path with Senate Bill 681. It provides early identification, structured intervention, ongoing monitoring, evidence-based instruction in the science of reading, and parental involvement in the decision-making process. Rather than introducing high-stakes retention, we should allow time to fully implement and evaluate our current mandates from Senate Bill 681, continue investing in teacher training and literacy supports, strengthen early intervention efforts, and engage with higher educational institutions to incorporate LETRS curriculum in their teacher training programs. Finally, I think we all share the same goal, ensuring that every child in Missouri becomes a successful reader. I sincerely thank you for wanting to do what's best for Missouri students. I respectfully ask for you to carefully consider the research, the current mandates already in place, and the real impact on students and their families. I urge you to oppose House Bill 2872 in its current form and continue supporting policies that focus on early intervention rather than retention. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Very much appreciated. Anyone else to testify in opposition? Please come forward.
Good morning. My name is Christina Sneed. I serve as the Curriculum and Instruction Leader for Reading and Literacy Instruction for the School District of University City. And I am here to just share a little bit of information that we have gleaned over the few years that we've been implementing Senate Bill 681. I agree with everything that those who testified before have spoken. Sorry, I'm a little nervous and I don't know why. Part of it is because I'm very passionate about this subject. Literacy is the foundation of all learning. Literacy is life for so many people, knowing that it is the best way to engage with the world, for our students to assert themselves in the world. And so I'm deeply passionate about it, and as the superintendent who spoke before, we have been doing everything possible to implement Senate Bill 681, and we've been seeing great gains with student confidence, student engagement, parent engagement, making sure that they understand how to best advocate for their students to make sure that they are developing reading skill, and understanding that, yes, it is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So we are looking for growth over time. We have implemented evidence-based resources. We are doing the best to progress monitor and make sure that we have our finger on the pulse of how our students are doing. And all of the research-based resources we put in place require a minimum of 3 years before you actually see the evidence of the change. So yes, we just implemented it. We need time to actually implement it well, to get our teachers fully grounded in the letters training that they have underwent. We have teachers who are so passionate about it. Now they want to know, how do I take this master's level course that I just went through, and that's what letters is, and make it work in my classroom with the students that I serve. And so that is a training and development plan that we have to now layer on top of letters training to make sure that it's showing up in the classroom in a real and relevant way. So we need time to make it work. We know the research, retention is bad for students. It is not the goal, as was stated earlier, but we know that it will be the effect. And so we don't want that one size fits all, whereas if a student just repeats the same grade level again, they're just gonna get the same content that did not work the first time. So what the reading success plans allow is a more targeted approach to address the gaps in the students' learning, to be able to get them to build reading skill over time. And I think that what has been implemented with Senate Bill 681 is working, and we just need time to realize the fruits of those labors. So we want more targeted intervention, and so those good parts of the bill, connected with Senate Bill 681, the reading success plans, we want to keep that part of it, and recommend also with the higher ed institutions, we do want to partner with them to make sure that they're sending us teachers already grounded in the science of reading, because it has been a challenge to change the pedagogical understandings and the mindsets of teachers who come to us having been grounded in that 3Qing method and whole language approaches, to try to then get them to shift into the science of reading. It's easier to teach something the first time than it is to change after you've already been taught something. So we are just asking, let us partner with those higher ed institutions. Keep that part in the bill. It's great. Everything else related to retention, please take that language out, and then give us time to work the plan that is already in place with Senate Bill 681.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate you coming down. You did a great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else to testify against? Please come forward. Don't be bashful. You can run up as soon as.
Thank
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mike Harris on behalf of the Missouri State Teacher Association in opposition to this bill. We do support evidence-based reading instruction and the science of reading reforms that Missouri has been building since Senate Bill 681, and we're not here to relitigate those. We're here because we think this bill goes too far, too fast in ways that will harm students and put educators in an impossible position. The retention mandate removes the meaningful parent input. We've heard about that. We believe that having that parent voice as part of that decision is critical. We also feel that this could double the reading success plan workload for teachers. Current law triggers it at the substantial deficiency. This would have the at-risk for reading to be included, and that would double the reading success plans. And then the intensive acceleration class mandate will be tough for schools to handle, having to pull a teacher out and expand class size as well, providing that intensive acceleration for those students. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Anyone else testify in opposition?
Good morning, members of the committee. Mr. Chairman, my name is Arnie C. A.C. Dienoff, State Public Advocate, and I submitted my online testimony opposed to this legislation. I forgot to say that in the last one, so I'm sure you got all three for this morning. Back on January 28th, I opposed HB 2872 in the elementary and special education. I want to first start out by saying, I almost called her Senator Loy, Representative Loy. She has a real heart of gold for education and has a real caring spirit and good humanistic, wanting the best for students and the best for our education. So my testimony does not diminish her champion for education and the best programs. But I think that this is putting the cart before the cart before the horse, and not giving other programs, and especially Senate Bill 681, a chance to work. This is a noble cause. Literacy should be, one of our number one educational priorities. So it's a noble cause, and I believe in competency. The preparation of programs, state aid, different models. Just look at the fiscal note. It's very concerning. For the next 3 fiscal years, it'll be over $10 million to reverse Senate Bill 681 and go in a different direction. It will also create 2 FTEs, full-time employees. As you all know, we need to cut $1 billion, that's with a B, billion, from this year's fiscal year budget, which of course the Senate Appropriations is taking up the education bill and all appropriations bill this week in committee down on the first floor. The second issue from the fiscal nonpartisan staff of fiscal division states the cost of local school districts is unknown, and I believe it will be hundreds of millions of dollars of a burden on our 518 public school districts. We need to give the current Senate bill, the current programs and guidelines, a chance. Every time we change course, it's a cost, and a huge burden and a huge hit on our fiscal year budget. I believe in local school district governance that I stated in the physical education bill. I believe that literacy curriculum and local decisions need to be made to the local elected school boards of our various school districts. We need to leave educational training and instruction and grade promotion and progression to our 518 school districts and our very qualified and dedicated Missouri Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. As you all know, a former member of the Senate is now the commissioner of the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, and I really have high value and high stake in her progression and her leadership of that agency. And so we keep coming up with all these great ideas, but we need to give the current programs and the current legislation time to work, and room to benefit our school students. For those reasons, I have to oppose HCS HB2872. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your testimony.
Thank you.
Anyone else testify in opposition, please come forward.
I've learned that patience is a virtue this morning. Thank you for your time, Mr. Chairman, gentlemen. Good morning. I appreciate this opportunity to speak on behalf of my school district. I'm a school administrator at St. James R1 School District in St. James, Missouri. We appreciate the intent behind this bill and the shared commitment to support a sustainable learning environment for all. Our schools already have many research-based focused approaches at this time in correlation to DESE and also House Bill 681. At this time, we believe our most urgent need is time. Many students are still working to recover foundational skills. Early literacy is critical, and it is impactful as far as long-term success. When time and resources are directed toward areas already addressed in practice, it can take away the focus from our baseline priorities, such as reading intervention, teacher training, and instructional support that we provide. If we want to improve student outcomes, investing in early literacy will have the greatest impact. We welcome continued partnership on efforts that will strengthen literacy. However, at this time, we do not feel that baseline retention for all students is the correct way to go. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for your patience. Appreciate your testimony. Anyone else testify in opposition? Okay, see none. Informational purposes only. Okay, see none. Representative, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's, I know there's only one man show here, but I wanted to, I knew you were probably on your way already here, so instead of canceling at the last minute, I went ahead and moved forward. So I was trying to be accommodating to you to come and testify. So with that, we are adjourned.
Senator.